Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the top stories of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Israel has continued its bombardment of the besieged Gaza Strip while hundreds of rockets were fired from the enclave in retaliation. Health authorities in Gaza said at least 36 Palestinians, including 10 children, have been killed in Israeli airstrikes since Monday. Diplomatic sources said the UN Security Council is holding an urgent meeting today to discuss the deadly unrest. Meanwhile, thousands of people are protesting against the Israeli aggression in different parts of the world. The World Health Organization says the Indian variant of COVID-19 has now been detected in 44 countries. India has logged its record of over 4,200 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 348,000 cases in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded 104 deaths and more than 2,800 cases since yesterday. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.3 million lives and infected over 159 million people. The United States says it has completed 12% withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan. The U.S. Central Command said an equivalent of 104 cargo planes of material has so far been removed ahead of the September deadline. The CENTCOM statement comes after Afghan security officials said the Taliban had captured a key district just outside Kabul. Two protesters have been killed in clashes with security forces in Sudan's capital city of Khartoum. Condemning the killings, the military said it will fully cooperate with judicial authorities to investigate the incident. The protesters were commemorating a deadly breakup of a protest camp 2 years ago outside the military's headquarters. These were the headlines. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Israel has continued its bombardment of the besieged Gaza Strip while hundreds of rockets were fired from the enclave in retaliation. Health authorities in Gaza said at least 36 Palestinians, including 10 children, have been killed in Israeli airstrikes since Monday. Diplomatic sources said the United Nations Security Council is holding an urgent meeting today to discuss the deadly unrest. This report has details.
A day ahead of the Muslim festival of Eid, the Gaza Strip echoed with blasts as Israeli warplanes rained down death on Palestinians. The attacks mark the most intense airstrikes in the blockaded Strip since 2014. Hamas retaliated with a barrage of rockets on Tel Aviv, most of which were shot down by Israel's Iron Dome defense system. Israeli soldiers also martyred one Palestinian and wounded dozens of others in attacks across the occupied West Bank. Meanwhile, thousands took to the streets around the world in solidarity with Palestinians. Protests were held in Kuwait, Oman, Pakistan, Tunisia, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
Israelis, they are going above and beyond, harassing Palestinians. So this gathering today among Palestinian and solidarity people from all different groups of lives, Hispanic, Latino, blacks, Chinese, everybody here, Arab, Muslims, in demonstration and in support of the Palestinian. The Palestinian is no longer alone by themselves.
United Nations Middle East Peace Coordinator Tor Wennesland has warned the conflict could fast escalate to full-scale war. He said the cost of war in Gaza is devastating and that the UN is working with all sides to restore calm. Amnesty International has called on Israel to end the ongoing forced displacements of Palestinians from East Jerusalem. Saudi Arabia has condemned Israel's atrocities during an emergency session of the Arab League Foreign Ministerial Council. Turkey strongly criticized the US for considering Israeli attacks on Palestinians self-defense.
With the Saudi foreign minister, we didn't just discuss our bilateral ties, but we also discussed the steps we can take within Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the Arab League and beyond. We also evaluated other regional issues.
Israeli forces launched a new round of attacks in Al-Aqsa Mosque and at Jerusalem's Damascus Gate, injuring dozens. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei also called on Palestinians to build up their fighting power to stop Israel's brutality.
Now, the World Health Organization says the Indian variant of COVID-19 has now been detected in 44 countries. India has logged its record of over 4,200 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 348,000 cases in the past 24 hours. While globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.3 million lives and infected over 159 million people. More about the pandemic in this report.
As the world sees no major signs of pandemic getting under control, now India's variant, detected in dozens of countries, has become a new concern. A leading virologist in India said it is too early to say if infections had reached a peak. In Buxar district of Bihar state, after post-mortems, medics have sent DNA samples of 71 dead bodies for further investigations. The bodies washed ashore along the banks of the river Ganges and are expected to be of COVID-19 victims. Buxar's officials said the local villages claimed there were 100 such bodies, and they say many deaths are taking place in the rural areas that are not being reported. Medical oxygen has become a major concern with top hospitals in Delhi and other major cities, while clinics in far-flung villages are even shorter in supply.
No doctor is coming for the visit. Nobody is telling us what medicine to give to the patient. We have to go and arrange for the oxygen ourselves. If the oxygen cylinder needs to be changed, then also we have to go to them at least 10 times to get it done. The staff just keeps saying that the doctor will come after some time. I had to go outside and bring the cylinder to the patient's room myself.
In Bangladesh, thousands walked along highways to reach ferry terminal to return home for the Eid holidays following a ban on land transport. Meanwhile, in the US, about 263 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered so far. From Mexico to Argentina, thousands of Latin Americans are booking flights to the US to take advantage of one of the world's most successful vaccination campaigns as rollouts in their own countries sputter.
I think that it's very good that there is a chance to travel abroad and that you can get a vaccine, given that in Mexico there is no opportunity and it is too late. And you have it here in the US. The US government tells the people to get vaccinated and people don't get it. There's a lot of opportunity in regards to the vaccine over there.
The Canadian provinces of Alberta and Ontario announced to stop offering first doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine. Alberta said it was unclear when more shipments of the vaccine might arrive, while Ontario cited evidence that the risk of rare blood clots is somewhat higher than previously estimated. Brazil has also suspended AstraZeneca vaccination of pregnant women after the death of a woman.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, another 104 people have died from coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the country's death toll has risen to 19,210. With over 2,800 new cases overnight, the country's caseload has crossed 867,000. Meanwhile, over 771,000 people have recovered so far. Authorities say currently there are over 76,000 active cases in the country, and more than 4,800 of them are critical. According to the NCOC statistics, the country's positivity ratio remained 7.42%. Now, the United States says it has completed a 12% withdrawal of its troops from Afghanistan. U.S. Central Command said an equivalent of 104 cargo planes of material has been removed ahead of the September deadline. In a statement, the CENTCOM said it turned over more than 1,800 pieces of equipment for destruction. It added the U.S. has officially handed over one facility to the Afghan National Army so far. However, it did not disclose the total number of American troops still based in Afghanistan. Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the hidden figures are meant to protect U.S. troops from possible Taliban attacks. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, security officials say the Taliban have captured a key district just outside Kabul. The seizure of the district comes amid intensifying violence following an announcement of a 3-day ceasefire on Eid. The Interior Ministry says the government troops made a tactical retreat from the district after a fight with the Taliban, while a Taliban spokesman said the group had killed and captured some Afghan security personnel. The fall of the district comes days after deadly bombings outside a school in Kabul that killed 68 people, including children. Moving on, Iran has increased uranium to 63% higher than the announced 60%. Last month, Iran made the shift to 60% from the previously achieved 20% after the attack on its nuclear facility. According to the UN nuclear watchdog, fluctuations at Tehran's Natanz nuclear plant pushed the purity level. The move comes amid Tehran's ongoing talks in Vienna with the world powers for the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal. Meanwhile, France says a great deal still needs to be done to revive the pact in a very short time frame. The Foreign Ministry also called on the United Nations nuclear watchdog and Iran to negotiate an extension to the technical bilateral accord. Now, 2 protesters have been killed in clashes with security forces in Sudan's capital city of Khartoum. The protesters were commemorating a deadly raid of a demonstration camp 2 years ago outside the military's headquarters. Demonstrations sprung up across the capital and protesters blocked roads with bricks and ties. Medics say more than 20 people were injured as security forces fired live rounds and tear gas on protesters. Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok described the use of gunfire against peaceful protesters as a crime that demands immediate justice. Condemning the killings, the military said it will fully cooperate with judicial authorities to investigate the incident. Now in Myanmar, protesters have taken to the streets again opposing the military regime across the country. In Kaya State, young people dressed as cavemen and women in a protest against the junta. Educators and students have called for a boycott of education under the military rule in Magwe region. Meanwhile, the civil disobedience campaign organizers say Myanmar should exit ASEAN unless it reforms itself. In a tweet, the group said Myanmar does not serve the interests of the people in the region but the autocrats and their business interests. According to a local advocacy group, at least 783 civilians have been killed in the junta's crackdown on dissent so far. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on 7 Lebanese individuals for alleged links to Hezbollah and its banking arm. In a statement, the U.S. Treasury Department said it imposed the curbs for illicit transfer of $500 million on behalf of the group. It names Ibrahim Ali Daher, the chief of Hezbollah's finance operation, for allegedly using personal bank accounts to evade U.S. sanctions. The department said the 7 men have all participated in evasive shadow banking activity. It alleged that Hezbollah continues to abuse Lebanese financial sector. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Hezbollah poses a threat to the U.S. and its allies in the Middle East. More news coming up after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back now. An inquest has found British soldiers shot dead 9 innocent people in Northern Ireland's Belfast in a 1971 military operation. The inquest began in 2018 and examined the deaths around the Ballymurphy area of Belfast almost 50 years ago. The shootings happened after an operation in which paramilitary suspects were detained without trial. Victims included a priest who was trying to help the wounded and a mother of 8. No one has been charged or convicted in connection with any of the killings. The inquest was a fact-finding exercise and not a criminal trial. Some 3,600 people were killed in the conflict between Irish nationalists, pro-British paramilitaries and British Army. Now, Venezuela's opposition leader Juan Guaido has proposed a progressive lifting of U.S. sanctions on the South American country. In a Twitter post, he said the move will be an incentive for President Nicolas Maduro to reach an agreement with the opposition. Guaido also proposed a national agreement that would include a schedule for general elections with all the political parties. In February, the Biden administration reaffirmed U.S. recognition of Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate president. The West has accused Maduro of human rights abuses and stalking hyperinflation. But the president says Venezuela's economic situation is the result of U.S. sanctions that have crippled its oil exports. Now, in the UK, the first major indoor music event with a live audience was held in London in over a year. Some 4,000 people attended the BRIT Awards on Tuesday night. The audience did not have to wear masks or practice social distancing to witness Britain's pop music honours. The ceremony featured live performances by artists like Dua Lipa, Arlo Parks and Sir John Elton. They dedicated their act to frontline health workers. Women won most of the awards at the ceremony, while Taylor Swift became the first woman to be awarded the rare Global Icon Award. The ceremony was part of the British government's research to establish whether big events can be held in closed environments without social distancing. Now, in Brazil, an iconic Rio de Janeiro theatre has reopened again after a year of closure. It is gradually welcoming musicians, dancers and singers to offer virtual shows.
Theatre is one of the last sectors to come back in Brazil due to the challenges of social distancing for audiences amid the coronavirus pandemic. The artist's return to the theatre is limited and only for rehearsals and recording of shows. Nonetheless, musicians and dancers are just happy to return to the stage.
No matter how much your flame is lit, there comes a time when it diminishes, and we feel that a little bit. As a musician, I feel that. So, this virtual concert that we are preparing ignited that flame again. We need this to perform in the theater. The artists need to be on the stage. We have the need.
Rio Theatre's ballet students and instructors never gave up hope of returning to the stage, and after months of waiting, their wishes have come true.
Mania de ter fé.
The Brazilians have a lot of faith. I have a lot of faith, and I transmit that to my students. We have faith that a better day will come. We have faith that everyone will be vaccinated. We have faith that everything will return to normal, and I carry that with me and pass it on my students. And hope can never die.
Rio's theatre inaugurated its concert season on 7th of May with the string ensemble performing works of Peter Warlock and Eric Elgar. In Brazil, thousands of entertainers were thrown out of work when the country's theatres closed last year.
Now, the UK says the post-Brexit trade rules for Northern Ireland may not be sustainable for long. In a statement, British negotiator and Junior Minister David Frost said the current protocols don't seem workable. He said solutions must be found rapidly in order to protect the 1988 Belfast Agreement between the UK and Ireland in all its dimensions. London and Brussels had agreed to keep Northern Ireland within the European Union's trading sphere, avoiding a hard border in Ireland. However, trade barriers, including a customs border between the province and the rest of the UK, were introduced as part of the Brexit deal. Meanwhile, Asian stocks markets are trading mixed following overnight Wall Street trend. Investors are looking ahead to US data they worry will show inflation is picking up. Sales Kospi and Japan's Nikkei 225 have tumbled over 1.5%. The ASX 200 in Australia has also shed close to 1%. However, shares in mainland China and Hong Kong have edged up marginally. And with that, we come to the end of this news bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.